Imagine you're sitting in a pitch black room when you notice a sudden source of light. It streaks across the ground, cutting the room into two halves, the illumination revealing a wooden door in the center of your view. In a rush of panic, you quickly rise to your feet, but with legs barely used, you fall just as fast. You begin to crawl towards the light, elbows and knees grinding against the rugged pavement, sweat mixing with tears and hope. Halfway there, the light begins to fade, the darkness beginning to envelop the room once more. You pick up the pace, clawing at the pavement, exerting what's left of your strength on the ground beneath you. With barely a sliver of light remaining, you make it to the door. You reach for the knob and turn it clockwise. Now, this was a story I randomly made up to be the introduction to this video. I'm by no means an established writer just yet. However, this little excerpt perfectly encapsulates everything I do love about storytelling. The characterization, the suspense of wanting to find out what happens next, the feeling of being brought into a world completely different from my own. There are so many different components of storytelling, and we all have stories that have shaped us as people. But for this video, I wanted to talk a little bit more about my experience and how storytelling changed my life. So as you can probably tell, stories were a big part of my life growing up. Even before I accurately knew what a story even was, I would use my imagination, making mud pies out of dirt in the ground or fighting imaginary ninjas in my bedroom. I was so engrossed in the idea of story that there was this running gag in my family that I could remember a whole movie's dialogue, but couldn't seem to remember my homework assignment that was due the next day. I mean, y'all could relate, right? Like, nobody was doing them homework assignments, you feel me? Just me? Okay, bump y'all. Now, obviously, this love for stories would eventually lead me to other mediums within storytelling. For example, video games. I remember playing Kingdom Hearts with my brothers during the summer, and there was this boss at the end who would give us so much trouble. If you know, you know. Video games are a much more personalized approach in comparison to movies because instead of watching a character on the screen, I controlled their choices, fully engrossing myself in the character's footsteps. Now, I even took this a step further later down the line when I picked up my first book. If you're anything like me, you probably hated books growing up. Not because you couldn't read, but mostly because it was forced upon you, and let's be honest, most of the books they had us read back then were hella boring. I remember going to the Scholastic Book Fair. I know y'all remember the Scholastic Book Fair. And I would skip the Twilights, the Harry Potters, and go straight to the manga section because they had pictures. And let's be honest, the pictures were clean. Why would I ever pick up a book when I can just look at the pictures and just see the dialogue? There was no point to reading, right? Books are trash. Or so I thought. Okay, this naive thinking all changed when I met my junior English high school teacher. Now, I forgot her name, so if you're watching this by some miraculous chance, I'm sorry, but you changed my life, truly. She had us read The Maze Runner. Now, at the time, I didn't know anything about The Maze Runner. I never saw the movies or anything like that. Reading that book, it completely warped my perception on books in general because I thought they were just some mundane, monotonous thing that you do in order to pass a class or pass this test at the end of the class. This embarking on a journey that really changed my perspective on what books could be, that I could traverse this world, traverse this person's footsteps that were completely different than mine. I feel like school should just banish the whole curriculum and just give kids some fiction books. I'm telling you, it'll change the game. Which leads me to my next point, self-development. This is what this whole video is about in the first place. I'm a big self-development nerd. I have done the meditations, the yoga sequences, the journaling every day, the just trying to be present and one with myself. I've tried it all. And I think they all sort of pale in comparison to the amount of growth that I experienced just from being involved in stories. Something that I think stories excel at more so than any other form of self-development is that it does this thing where it puts you in a state of forced empathy. That's what I'm going to call it, at least. Basically, what I mean by that is that you are forced to be in this person's shoes. You're sort of required to walk in their footsteps. It causes you to see the world from their perspective, see how their setting is compared to your own, see what choices they have to make and why they made those choices. Makes you, I guess, understand the person more and understand where they're coming from. And I think when you take that ability to see a character and walk through their shoes, you can take that experience and put that in your own day-to-day life. Whether you're talking to a friend or a coworker or just your parents or something, you're able to see, you know what? I can see why you made that choice. And it just sort of develops that empathy so much more than I think any other form of self-development does, at least for me. This is my experience, all of this. Stories also do a really good job of making you more imaginative and a better problem solver. When you're watching a film or reading a book, you're constantly trying to connect these plot lines and these threads that the story is showing you. This problem solving process in stories leads to more introspection when you step away from it, because then you can look at yourself and your actions with more clarity and more imaginative curiosity. Now, with all that being said, I believe the main thing that I can take away from stories is that mine is still being written, that I have the opportunity to change and rearrange my story however I see fit. I can change the characters, the settings, and anything about myself if I want to. I don't believe we should let ourselves be defined by what our stories should be, but to create the stories that we want. And I believe we all can create a great story. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope to make more videos like this, just detailing my experience with stories and self-development. So if you like the type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.